31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Joviat. Tonight we're talking all about summertime injuries. School is almost out. People are hitting the roads. They're traveling. Kids are on bike paths. Kids are out at the pools. Kids are free. And it's time to be taking a look at what you need to be doing to look out for them, but also to look out for if somebody got injured, if you got injured with a summertime injury, what legal steps do you need to be taking to protect yourself? If you've got a question, call in. The 31 Law Call number is 256-536-0077. You can also send an email. You send it to lawcall@waaytv.com. You can send them anytime, any day of the week, and we will pull some of those out. We will have some of your email questions tonight. Getting us started tonight, we've got Will Leake and Heath Brooks, both from Timberlake. And Leake, good to have you here tonight.
All right, Sharon, how are you this evening?
Very well.
We got Heath here as well.
Heath is joining us by Zoom. Thanks, Heath, for staying up with us tonight and answering questions from afar.
Good evening.
And we're going to start with some video that we've got. We like to give you a You Make the Law Call video. We pull something off of YouTube. This is, you know, there's going to be a lot of kids out, a lot of dogs out this summertime. So watch what happens in this case. It's going to end okay. It starts kind of bad with this dog coming up. He actually grabs a hold of the child. The child does have, what is that?
Cat comes in.
The cat comes out and rescues him from out of nowhere. Go Tiger.
Yeah, you know, every parent's nightmare, you know, there's cameras in the front yard, child's in the front yard playing, and next door neighbor or whoever's got a roaming dog that's not up any good, which, you know, on the liability side, you know, if you're the owner of a dog and you, in Alabama, at least in Alabama, I don't think this is in Alabama, there used to be a saying, the first bite is free. If you know your dog is dangerous, there's dangerous propensities, then you could be liable for any injuries or damage your dog caused.
Wow.
Heath? You know, summertime, we see a lot of cases, people are out more, dogs get out, you know, things happen.
Yeah, that's right. And with dogs, particularly in Huntsville, we had assisted this several years ago with the city passing a leashing law ordinance in Huntsville that if you have a dog within the city limits of Huntsville, you actually have to have your dog on a leash. And also, under the state of Alabama law, if your dog is running wild, you have to keep your dog under control. And if your dog is running wild, whether it's bitten somebody or not, if it goes into somebody else's yard and bites, trespasses or bites someone else, you could get medical bills in that kind of situation. So, you know, if that happens to you, God forbid, or one of your children, you know, talk to a lawyer about that.
Would your homeowner's insurance cover something like that? Is that a possibility?
Most of the time. Now, there's some exclusions, but your homeowner's policy covers that. There's some exclusions for pit bulls. You know, it might not be the dog's fault. I get it, how they're trained, but the numbers don't lie in terms of the numbers of pit bull attacks. So some insurance companies have exclusions for those type of dogs. And thankfully, we're not seeing as much as we were. But, you know, 10, 15, you know, 5, even 10 years ago, you got kids getting these vicious dogs, training them poorly, not maintaining them, not, you know, taking care of them. And we saw some devastating cases from that, or dogs roam in the neighborhood. So it can get serious real fast. I mean, Heath and I have had death cases where the child's out in the yard.
Oh, my goodness.
Thankfully, this cat saved the day. It looks like the parents were there, but, you know, we've had tragedy cases, you know, from that particular scenario.
Yeah.
And then we've had situations where the coverage has been excluded, specifically for pit bulls. That's very common now. So look at your insurance policies.
What are you, summertime is a busy time, right? You guys do personal injury cases, so that's everything from car accidents to medical malpractice. But in summertime, what do you tend to see?
You know, I'm following Heath. You know, Heath's always been, he's from Georgia, he's always been a gardener and whatnot. So I'm actually having my first garden this year in a long
Good
time.
for
So I'm out there
you.
messing around. I was limbing, didn't have my eye protection on. Limb came down, almost got me. You know, it was
You're
almost
lucky.
bad. Got lucky. But we've seen chainsaw injuries, things like that. But in the summertime, people are getting out more. You know, herbicides, you know, where there's a big class action about herbicides and it's causing cancer. And the studies came out that show that there was actually, you know, agent in there that they know about or should have known about, continue to sell a product. There's a huge class action. And people think, oh, okay, class actions, but, you know, you're using this thinking it's safe. You got cancer, all of a sudden you're about to die, or you have perished. You know, what are your rights, you know, under the you know, product's liability, placing a dangerous product in the stream of commerce. And, you know, Heath, how do you stay, you know, you're in the garden, how you staying safe out there, snakes and all kinds of stuff?
Yeah, you know, and a lot of times in the summer we see, like you were saying, we see people traveling, you know, and you're on your way to Georgia. and maybe you're a resident here in Alabama, you get over to Georgia and you get into a car wreck or something like that. And what do you do in that scenario? Because here you are over in Georgia, you're home, you're way away from home, you're having to go to a hospital that's not your hospital, see a doctor that's not your doctor. What do you do in those scenarios? And I practice law in Georgia and up in Tennessee, but a lot of times, the same rules apply. If you can, make sure to gather the information. You're in an unfamiliar place, so gather all the information, get the names of the witnesses. If it's safe to do so, take pictures of your car. And oftentimes when you get back to where you left, call an attorney and talk to them, because we may be able to, if we don't practice law in that state, we may be able to find somebody who can help you. Because another state's law, you have to be licensed to practice law in another state. And sometimes you have to get into a lawsuit, God forbid. You're terribly injured, don't know where to turn, and that's the first place you start.
A lot of people think that lawyers are the same, that one lawyer who's licensed to practice there is the same as another lawyer that's licensed to practice there. Not necessarily true. There are a lot of different ways that law offices operate. And if you're in something, you want to talk to somebody, at least talk to somebody you know and trust, to have them help you find somebody you know and trust in this new location.
Right. I mean, you want to navigate whichever scenario you find yourself in: bankruptcy, federal court, state court, district court. People call us, lawyers, Sharon, you get this, your buddy's son's in trouble. Hey, wasn't his, he didn't mean to do this, that, and the other. School board, you could be in city court. And oftentimes it's a slap on the wrist, sometimes they're more serious, but to shepherd a particular client in the right way in terms of what type of law, because again, there's bankruptcy, Sharon does domestic relations, child support, serious stuff, not what Heath and I do. And so what type of lawyer, it's, your heart surgeon's not going to do your knee surgery. So you want to make sure that you investigate the lawyer you're looking at. What's the track record? Will they go to court? Again, that's not saying, hey, you want to take every case to court. Let's be pragmatic. Let's be reasonable. However, there's a group of lawyers out there that are doing a lot of stuff that we do, but won't go to court.
So what difference does that make? You say that, and I think everybody assumes every lawyer is practiced and is going to go to court for me. Not necessarily, right?
Well, I mean, in some disciplines don't, corporate lawyers, a lot of times they're not in court, so nobody don't have to be a litigator. I get that.
Right.
But when you've got a lawyer that tries to settle every case, then it makes it difficult for everyone else. The insurance company gets used to paying and lowballing their clients. And with the volume of work, you're not getting the quality that we think you should. And so a lot of lawyers are upset about the high volume in terms of that results in poor quality, or that if they won't go to court, what that does to the client, they don't even have that arrow in the quiver, which needs to be there to fairly evaluate each case.
If you've got a summertime injury question, call in the 31 Law Call number, 256-536-0077. How about we talk a little bit about boating? Everybody's going to be hitting the rivers. Right. Boating law, DUIs and things like that. Are those laws also in effect with being out boating, drinking and boating?
He's an expert on that.
Yeah. Well, they are. The interesting thing about boating, I mean, you can't drive a boat drunk. If you drive a boat drunk, you hurt somebody, the same laws still apply. But a lot of times, boating cases can get very, very complicated because you're dealing with federal maritime law sometimes. If you're on a lake that's controlled by the Corps of Engineers, and we handled boating cases fairly regularly during the summertime. Sometimes, we had one where somebody was just drunk on the lake. They ran into another boat, and then they tried to run from the law, and of course got caught, and we ended up dealing with some folks who were significantly injured. But we had to deal with the Federal Tort Claims Act, which is the federal way of dealing with a personal injury case. So they can become very complicated. You may be dealing with federal law, and the penalties for being drunk and being on a lake can be a lot more significant, particularly when you're looking at federal jail time. So those are all the issues you kind of got to deal with.
Mm-hmm. We've got Robin on the line with a question from Union Grove. Hi, Robin. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Hi there. I saw you were talking about dog injuries,
yes,
with kids and all, and I was recently attacked by my neighbor's pit bull. And I had two well-known law firms send letters to the owner of the dog in the house, and she refuses to comply by giving up her insurance info, homeowners.
Wow.
So let's just say she doesn't have that kind of coverage because it is a pit bull.
Yeah.
What are my options? Because I've got $1,000 in medical bills, and they're about to go into collection because I can't pay them.
Yeah, and you shouldn't have to. It shouldn't be on you.
And I'm also, I also have scarring and disfiguring, not that are so much visible on my body, but I am scarred up and.
Yeah. What can she do?
You know.
When you try a case, if let's say Sharon's dog attacks me, let's in your scenario, and you make a claim or you file a lawsuit against that person, the jury will not know that there's insurance usually behind the defendant. So let's say it's Sally Smith that owns that's your neighbor, and they own that dog, and it comes over, attacks you just like you said, and she's got coverage. Well, if you file a lawsuit and then you obtain a verdict from a jury, the insurance company will pay that verdict, and that's how you obtain that. There's only two ways to get insurance company to pay. One, if they agree, and the other, if you make them through a jury trial. That doesn't mean if you file a case, you're going to win that case. You have to show that they knew or should have known the dog was dangerous. They failed to keep the dog on a leash wherever they lived. That was the appropriate law, and it came over and injured you. And so you should be able to recover under those particular facts. But let's say there's an exclusion like you're talking about. Then it's you versus her. Does she have independent assets to cover that? Does she have the assets you could file a lien on and recover those? So it's one thing winning a case. It's another collecting the judgment against the individual or corporation. But again, 99% of the time there's insurance behind the person. However, the jury will not know that.
So if she's not,
and
go ahead, Heath.
The other thing you need to look at in that kind of scenario, and Will and I deal with this very regularly. Oftentimes, if your neighbor doesn't own her house, it is owned by her landlord. And then the question is, did the landlord have knowledge of the pit bull? Did the landlord know that the pit bull was getting out of the house? Because there is some responsibility that can be imparted upon a landlord if they're aware that there is a dangerous condition on that property. Now, it's much more difficult, but oftentimes the tenant that lives in the landlord's house won't have a policy of insurance. So you look towards other places and other folks that may be responsible for your injuries in that kind of scenario. And then if you can't find any, you march down to the courthouse, you file a lawsuit, and like Will said, you try to collect if you get a verdict. But it is not surprising that someone would not give up insurance, because everybody knows you make a claim with your homeowner's insurance policy, your rates go up, and they're hoping that you just go away and they don't have to worry about it.
There's another option on your own. If you're on your own home, if you're there, your med pay may apply. So if you have $2,000 worth of medical bills, your med pay may pay that. Now they have, sadly, a subrogation interest against what you will recover if you file a lawsuit, but that may cover that. Because look, a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck, $2,000 worth of medical bills, all of a sudden unexpected, then things start to back up. So that's a way to maybe bridge the gap until you might could find an attorney or file a claim.
Robin, I hope you've reported it to police too, because if this is the first bite, or maybe this second, or this could have happened before, and we don't want that to happen to somebody else in the future. So I'd report it in all kinds of ways. They're telling us to take a break. Let's take a break. We'll be right back talking all about summertime injuries tonight. Stay with us.
You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call, where lawyers come to help. Your rights, your calls, live. Hosted by family law attorney Sharon Doviet, with the personal injury attorneys of one of the Valley's most respected law firms, Timberlake and League. Featuring the knowledge of managing partner Michael Timberlake, with millions of dollars awarded to his clients. And the experience of attorney Will League, a strong courtroom fighter known for his commitment to winning. And the fellow partners of Timberlake and League, Heath Brooks and William Meservey. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back. I'm Sharon Doviet. Tonight we're taking calls and questions all about summertime injuries. We've got with us both Will League and Heath Brooks from Timberlake and League. They are personal injury attorneys, and they do car accidents, medical malpractice cases, product liability cases. So call in your questions. The 31 Law Call number 536-0077. We had a caller that called in and we lost him, but we know his question was, he got hit on a bike. Now I'm not sure if this is a bicycle or a motorcycle. The person who hit him drove away and he did not get the license plate number. Anything he can do with something like that? He's got injuries.
Heath, what do you think?
Well, you know, this case has come up in our firm. You know, and one thing that you can do is you may be able to make a claim against your uninsured motorist coverage. Now, that is after you have talked to every business who may be in the area to try to identify some camera footage that, you know, some business may have had, which is what we tried to do to find the hit and run driver. But in Alabama, your underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage could cover you for your injuries. And what I mean by that is generally when you purchase automobile insurance, because 20 to 25% of Alabama drivers don't have insurance on their cars, you need to protect yourself in case they don't have insurance so that your insurance company can take care of your injuries. Well, uninsured motorist coverage follows the person. So if you're on your bike driving down the road and somebody hits you and runs away, you may be able to make a claim against your own uninsured motorist coverage for your injuries. But like I said, look and see if there's any video first. Sometimes you can find the person that hit you.
Good. Let's talk about motorcycles on the road. A lot of people were out today. It was beautiful weather, a lot of motorcycles. Is the law different in dealing with other cars versus dealing with other motorcycles? And they seem so at risk out there.
You know, the rules of the road are the same for cars and motorcycles. So there's, you know, we see a lot of motorcycle wrecks, and unfortunately, the injuries are horrific, and they're really scary. And I applaud Huntsville for getting a lot better with bike lanes and things like that. It still freaks me out to see these bike lanes in the middle of 4 lanes going down a busy street, and sometimes even I get frustrated with the people that are on the bike lanes, you know, breaking up traffic and slowing everything down. But they're brave. But it's also, we see so many wrecks, and when you talk about the motorcycles. You know, there's a lot of death claims, and you're looking at, let's say, had a lot of cases where the minimum coverage is $25,000, and let's say you don't have coverage on your motorcycle, or you don't have underinsured motorist coverage like Heath was talking about. And we resolve these claims, but sadly, unless the person who hit you or killed you was independently wealthy, usually there's not enough coverage. And so Heath and I see this day in and day out, well, week in and week out, with death cases, to where there's not enough insurance. You want to have as much insurance as you can to get. If you're dead, that's bad as well. But it's almost like, well, it is an insurance policy to take care of your family if something were to happen. With the motorcycle wrecks, you see a lot more. We're taking a lot more depositions. There's a lot more surgeries, a lot more things. Everybody knows it's inherently dangerous. You know, Heath, we tried one. And there is, you know, and I mentioned right here about prejudice against the bicyclists in the middle of the road, slowing us down. And I cycle as well, but it's so dangerous. And so when you look at the motorcycle cases, what's the difference in those?
You know, the thing is that juries are cynical sometimes, and they think that if you get on a motorcycle, a lot of times you've assumed the risk of getting injured when you're on the motorcycle. And that's one thing we have to teach juries. And you know, that is that even if you're on a motorcycle, you have the right to be there. You pay taxes to be on the road. You buy your tag. You know, you pay to be there every time you put gas in your tank. So, you know, motorcyclists have the same rights as folks that are on the road, but folks in cars generally think that, hey, look, you get on a motorcycle, you're taking your life into your own hands. And a lot of times it's hard to overcome that prejudice by a jury. So, you know, that's something that we have to consider. And
one of the things that, you know, we talk about a lot, but when you really talk about distracted driving, you know, if you're texting whatever's happening, you can rear into somebody, it's a car wreck. But if they're on a motorcycle, it could kill them. And so there's such a difference in the injuries and also the numbers of people distracted driving and just not even seeing somebody. And the motorcycles are most at risk.
We've got Dee on the line with a question from Huntsville. Hi, Dee. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Okay. My question is, I fell down in my house, and I had an operation on my neck, but I still am having a lot of pain. So I would like to know if I have access to my x-rays just to see what they look like.
Does he have a right to get his medical records, his x-rays and things, and see what is on there?
He does.
Or take them to somebody else and let them look at it?
He does, Heath?
Yeah, he does. That federal HIPAA law is what the acronym is that you actually own your medical records. And what you need to do is you need to go down to the medical provider where you had your surgery, and you need to fill out a form, and you need to get your medical records in digital form. It won't cost very much money, but you have an absolute right to get your medical records. You own your medical records, and so it's a fairly simple process to go down to the hospital or the surgeon's office that you went to have the surgery done, and they have to, under federal law, provide you medical records.
You know, and on that note, any case you have regarding injuries, you'll have to get the medical records into evidence, and you have to show that they're authentic, foundation, all the authentication, all the things that try and get over a hearsay objection. Because remember, you can't just put in a record without it being properly authenticated. Oftentimes they can be certified, but getting them is a process, and a lot of times there's portals now where you can get it online, but it has to be secure. And so anytime you're thinking about filing or pursuing a injury claim, you got to think about how you're going to get your medical records into evidence. An individual cannot testify that he or she, that was the proximate cause of his or her injury. It has to come from medical testimony, and experts will come in and testify in your case, whether it be your doctor or whoever treated you for those injuries.
We got this email question in from Rick. Rick said, we were just talking about motorcycle injuries. My cousin was killed when his motorcycle hit an SUV. It's been suggested that my cousin was speeding, but the driver definitely turned in front of him. If they can somehow prove that my cousin was over the speed limit, does that mean his family has no claim against the driver? You know,
that's one of the worst things about Alabama law, and I'm not trying to rage, but it's really against the consumer. We have what's called contributory negligence in Alabama, which means if you contribute in slightly in any way in your own injury, you cannot recover. And so it's a pretty significant, harsh penalty. Let's say Sharon and I'm driving down the road, we're on a four-way stop, and I blow through drunk, 2.0, 5 times over the legal limit, whatever it turns out to be, and hit you. Let's say you came up to the stop sign and you barely rolled through that stop sign. Well, you did break the law by running that stop sign, so you could not recover against me, or your family couldn't recover
at all, even though you're really the majority of the problem.
And that was the big issue in Florida. They went from pure comparative to just 51%. So Alabama's still even worse than that. And so it's fun and games. People really know what I'm talking about. But when you're in that position, and it's so slanted in the insurance company's favor with contributory negligence, and it hadn't been addressed in our legislature in a long time.
Okay, we're taking a break. Be right back answering more of your questions about summertime injuries. If you didn't get your questions answered tonight, here's how to get in touch with Will League and Heath Brooks with Timberlake and League in Huntsville, 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com, and if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And Sharon Doviat, family law attorney, child support, divorce, custody, 539-7337, SharonFamilyLaw.com.
Heath, you're warning folks about pools tonight.
Have a fence and keep it locked around your pools. Kids wander around and they could get drowned. So make sure to keep your pools locked up.
Mom, happy birthday. Happy birthday. Look at that. Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day to
Happy
Mom.
Mother's Day.
Thanks to all the moms out there. We'll see you next week.